What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can now follow me through Patreon. Not only is it the best way to support the channel, but additionally you'll get more say in what decks I cover. Special shout out to my high contributing patrons. Newsome, you rock. Now let's get into today's Deck Tech with Gyrus. And if you guys have been following the channel for a while, you already know that this is my pet commander, and he's gotten a lot of broken tech throughout the past year, so I'm excited to upgrade him. This is by far the most cracked and solved version of him, so I'm excited to show it off. The first thing we have is the Master Multiplied. The fact that we're able to reanimate this guy using Gyrus's ability, and then the token sticks around because of its own ability, is pretty busted. And then obviously the Master Multiplied, pretty cracked card and starts doing some broken stuff. And then additionally we get to keep all of the other creatures we exile with Gyrus because that token cannot be exiled. So it's definitely going to help us break this commander. Another thing we got that really does a good job of breaking this deck is Altar of the Wretched. Now, I'm really not too interested in the front side, even though it's very good. It adds card advantage and we get mill, which we want to be doing both of those things in this deck, right? Additionally, once this thing flips over, we can exile some massive creatures like Souls of the Lost from our graveyard, and it's very easy to make this thing 60 plus power, which is very abusable. Not only does that put everybody in one-shot range, but additionally stuff like Ruthless Tectomancer and Disciple of Bolas go absolutely hard when you sacrifice something that massive. And then, hey, even Altar of Dementia, we could mill our entire library out, and when we have Out of the Tomb on the battlefield, that's kind of extremely busted. It will allow us to basically reanimate our entire graveyard and swing out for the win. So if that sounds like a deck tech you're into, let's get into it. The first thing we need to do in this deck is start filling our graveyard. So Out of the Tombs is going to be perfect. Not only does this stack up extremely fast, but additionally, whenever our library is empty, it will actually start reanimating our graveyard. So this can be extremely abusable with a sack outlet and something that draws us a card whenever a creature enters the battlefield. Because what's going to happen is we can have a creature enter the battlefield and we're going to draw a card, but our library is empty, so that trigger will go on the stack, and then we can sacrifice that creature again, reanimating it. This is basically infinite die triggers, infinite ETB triggers, and at the end of the day, it can reanimate your entire graveyard, so that's going to be pretty busted. Life from the Loam can also be very useful in this deck, just making sure we never miss a land drop while milling our library. Kind of does everything we want the deck to do. Additionally, we are running Boseiju and a few other utility lands, so it can retrieve those from the graveyard as well. Goblin Engineer is just going to shove Altar of the Wretched right into the graveyard, and then Altar of the Wretched can return itself from the graveyard to our hand for some reason. So that's extremely busted, and it's just going to make the deck very consistent. Not to mention late game, it can just grab us our bombs like Skullspore Nexus and the Great Henge, so that's going to be good. Buried Alive is amazing in this deck, because 9 times out of 10, you just grab Archpriest of Shadows, and then any other 2 creatures you need, and with Gyrus and Archpriest on the battlefield with the Gyrus trigger, you can reanimate both of those creatures that turn. It's pretty busted. Entomb is super flexible, judging on how big Gyrus is. Additionally, you can always grab your Altar of the Wretched or even Life from the Loam if you need some more dredge. Brass's Tunnel Grinder is amazing in this deck, and it's definitely going to flip to its backside, which helps us out as well. It's just a very good flex card that can discard the bombs we don't need or the cards that we want in our graveyard to reanimate with Gyrus while getting us some card advantage. Bramble Familiar is extremely busted in this deck. Once you get 7 mana, definitely fire off that quest, and then you're just going to start milling while getting a ton of value. Additionally, early game it's a mana dork, so you can't really complain. Underrealm Lich is one of the ways we can easily empty our library, especially if we have something like Disciple of Bolas and a massive creature. We're just going to get there really fast. Hermit Druid's also going to be very useful in this deck. We're going to run a very small amount of basics, that way this guy's going to mill a ton of cards, which is only going to help us. Doom Whisperer is kind of like a Grizzlebrand in this deck. You just keep paying life and drawing cards, because remember, our graveyard is our hand. Faithless Looting, just for the early game, get those big bombs out of our hand, or cards we want to reanimate with Gyrus into the graveyard. Either way, it's a very flexible card. Dragon Mage will just have us discard our entire hand and draw a new 7, so that's going to be very good, especially if we can get this guy out early or just reanimate him with Gyrus. Last but not least, we have Anger just for haste. It's one of the best keywords in Magic, and once we get this guy in our graveyard, the deck really starts to turn on. Moving on to the other really important part of the deck, we have the Power Matters theme. Altar of the Wretched is going to be amazing. It draws us cards, it mills us, it's exactly what we want to do. Additionally, once we craft this guy, it can easily be a 60 power creature. Something not to miss as well is you do additionally get the keywords of the creatures that you are exiling. So all you have to do is exile something like Souls of the Lost, Lord of Extinction, and then I don't know, Gulta, and boom, you've got a 60 plus power creature with trample. That's going to kill somebody. Greven is also going to be amazing in this deck. Not only can you very easily start pressuring people's life totals, but additionally you're going to draw a ton of cards. Just make sure not to kill yourself. Greater Good is going to be amazing. We all know Greater Good's a great card. Disciple of Bolas is amazing in this deck. It's very easy to reanimate with Gyrus. Additionally, that life gain comes in handy more often than you think. Selvala, Heart of the Wilds can generate some insane mana in this deck. Not to mention that card draw ability is going to trigger quite often with how big our creatures are in this deck. The Reaver Cleaver is going to be amazing. You get a ton of treasure tokens with this. I mean, again, your 60 power creature now has trample and generates a ton of treasures. You're just going to win if that ever connects. Ruthless Technomancer, another card that you're just going to win if you sacrifice the right creatures to this. I mean, if we get a 60 power Altar of the Wretched on the battlefield, it's going to be very easy to slam a Ruthless Technomancer and have near infinite mana. The Great Henge is only ever going to be 2 mana in this deck, and then additionally, it does draw you cards on ETB. So whenever we reanimate creatures with stuff like Out of the Tombs, it does give you that card draw effect, which is going to be extremely busted. Terror of the Peaks can absolutely win you games in this deck, especially with Altar of the Wretched. Remember, craft with, you exile it and then return it to the battlefield. So you'll get a 60 power ETB that will just one-shot one of your opponents, giving us a new Death Star. Additionally, there is a way to go infinite with it, so I will cover that later on in the video. Xanagos is just going to be a solid creature that doubles the power of one of our creatures that can be extremely impactful for Gyrus, because remember, his reanimation ability is judging on his power, and then additionally just doubling up on Souls of the Lost power or our other massive creatures is also going to be very useful. The Skull Spore Nexus also makes the cut, so now whenever we sacrifice that massive creature to Ruthless Technomancer, we get another massive creature. And if that wasn't good enough, we can double one of our creature's power before we sacrifice it to Ruthless Technomancer. This card just does stupid things in this deck. Moving on to the core of the deck, we have some extra combats with Karlach, Marag, and Seize the Day. Notably, Seize the Day can win you the game if Gyrus has 7 power, because what you're going to do is reanimate Bladewing, generate a massive board state, and then on your second combat step, you need to reanimate Craterhoof, and then we all know Craterhoof does some stupid things. You will need Anger in the graveyard, that way all of those zombies can attack, but again, that is just going to win the game for you. Rakdos, Lord of Riots can also do stupid things in this deck. There's a way to just draw 40 plus cards, so having something like a Rakdos, Lord of Riots, that way we can throw all those cards onto the battlefield is going to be very useful. This is also why Gwenna's in the deck, right? If you pair Gwenna with Rakdos, Lord of Riots, it's going to ensure that you can cast those massive creatures, and she'll just keep on tapping to go ahead and tap again. That way we can get rid of the colored pips and the generic cost of all of our creatures. Notably, Rakdos, Lord of Riots also does go infinite with our commander, food chain, and Terror of the Peaks. What's going to happen is every time our commander enters the battlefield, Terror of the Peaks is going to deal damage to someone, farthering reducing his casting cost. Now we can sacrifice our commander to food chain to get 4 mana of 1 color. Now you do need a couple untapped lands, but as long as you can cast your commander 3 times, the food chain loop will go infinite, and you can go ahead and win the game from there with infinite damage. Archpriest of Shadows makes the cut. Again, she's just going to be amazing in the deck. Eternal Witness to return anything. We then have Chainer Nightmare Adept, super underrated card. It's very oppressive if we can get a Fleshbag Marauder every single turn. Additionally, it discards the cards you don't want. One last thing, a lot of people don't realize, he doesn't care if you reanimate the creature with his ability to give it haste. He just cares that you didn't cast it from your hand. So now anything we reanimate has haste. Feldon is also going to be amazing in the deck. It's another incredible toolbox card that grabs us whatever we need from our graveyard. Additionally, it can start the Master Multiplied bullshit, so that's also going to be very useful. Obviously, we're running the Master Multiplied. This guy gets out of hand extremely quickly. I probably will alter this guy because he's still just a random dude in blue jeans to me, but it's going to be amazing in the deck. The Myco Tyrant is simply plan B. If Gyrus doesn't work out, the Myco Tyrant can take over very easily in this deck. This card gets absolutely massive, insanely fast. If Myco Tyrant was Jund, he'd be near unstoppable, and that's kind of how it feels in this deck. Fauna Shaman's amazing, gets us whatever we need while being a solid way to discard anger into our graveyard. Underworld Breach is incredibly busted. It'll give us one turn of pure bliss and honestly win us the game 9 times out of 10. Orin Frostfang's amazing. Just giving all of your creatures death touch is kind of underrated. Additionally, it's just going to give us some solid card advantage. Corvold makes the cut for a couple reasons. One, he can sacrifice the token we reanimate with Gyrus to draw a card. Not to mention he goes absolutely insane with Ruthless Technomancer or the Reaver Cleaver, letting us draw our library while we have a ton of mana at the same time. Guruk's Uprising, trample's pretty important, and it draws us cards, so we're here for it. Elemental Bond, again, just some solid card advantage. Moving on to ramp, we have Ignoble Hierarch, Gwenna, Eyes of Gia, and Bloom Tinder. Very solid mana dorks in the deck. They all generate a ton of mana or come down super early. 3 Visits, Farseek, Nature's Lore, and Secure Tribuilder are our early game ramp choices. Moving on to removal, we have Plague Crafter, Fleshbag Marauder, and Merciless Executioner. I'm going to tell you it is kind of oppressive to just slam Gyrus for 4, drop a Ruthless Technomancer, it sacks itself, and then you attack with Gyrus reanimating Ruthless Technomancer. That can be a semi-board wipe in the early game and really set people back to the Stone Age. Thrashing Brontodon is very useful in this deck. The fact that we can sacrifice it to put it back into our graveyard to reanimate with Gyrus is very useful. Boseiju Who Endures and Shatterskull Smashing, just some solid ways to remove creatures while also having a flex land piece. Bane of Progress is amazing. It really hates out those artifacts and enchantment strategies. Massacre Worm will hate out the token strategies. This card can be pretty oppressive when you have Chainer on the battlefield, and I have used it to win games and basically make people's decks useless. Blasphemous Act, very useful. Again, if we're trying to go later into the game, having something like a Blasphemous Act to slow down the token players is going to be crucial. Let's playtest this deck. I'm excited to showcase this one because this is actually one of my personal decks. We're going to mull this one. It's almost keepable, but not quite. Yep, mull this one, go to 6. We'll keep this one for sure. So I will go ahead and throw this out. Oh, let's draw a card. Yeah, throw this out, sack it. We do have Zeatoras in here, so we're going to grab Zeatoras, and then we're going to go to our next turn. Never Punished. Got another land. Okay, we need another green source. So we're going to sack that. Find me another green source. We are running Kessing Wolfrun in this deck just to give Gyrus trample. Pretty dope. That card's kind of underrated. Kind of does a lot. Okay, black. And then we will throw a Goblin Engineer. Probably grabbing... Yeah, let's just grab Altar here. Throw it in the graveyard. Go to our next turn. Sack this. Sure, we'll grab this. And then we're going to throw out probably a Selvala here just for some mana. Or we could go out of the tomb and start milling to Oblivion. We have choices. Selvala. We don't have anything big yet. Let's do out of the tomb. That might get us there faster. So next turn, we'll mill 2 and then draw. Okay, cool. 3 lands in a row. Let's add counters on this because we will forget. So 2, and then we throw out Selvala. And then we go to our next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, Archpriest. Ooh, we got some hits. Ooh, Master Multiplied 2. Okay, so we got some hits. We don't have a land, but we can 1, 2, 3, 4. Or we 3. We better do 4. That's 4. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 5. And then now we can start cooking. Okay, that's... Okay, we'll mill 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's fine. And then we will go to our next turn. Ooh. So... Oh, wait a minute. If we had a land, we could Lord of Extinction and then tap Selvala for 15 mana. Sounds busted. We'll probably do that next turn. We can tap Selvala for 5 here, though. And then we probably will just slam Lord of Extinction. Right? Because that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this guy's a 16. 16 right now, but you know he's going to be more. because it's just our graveyard right now. Oh no, Skullspore Nexus. Oh, this is gonna be a crazy next turn. Crazy next turn. Okay, and then yeah, we are just going to end our turn there. We're gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards, and then go to our draw. Oh, we drew Anger. That kind of sucks, but it's fine. So this guy's gonna go up to 24. Let's round it up to 50, or sorry, 25, just because I like round numbers. And then we can tap the Skullspore Nexus, send him to 50. Yeah, there we go. And then that's fair. Let's tap Selvala. Did we have Anger in the graveyard? I'm sorry, I missed it if we did. We don't. Okay, we don't. Oh, it's in our hand. That's what I said. I remember that. I remember that now. So let's see. This is gonna look dumb, but this is what we need to do. We're going to tap Selvala for 50 mana. We're going to play Anger for 4 of it, and then we're going to do 4 more, going down to 42 mana. Ruthless Technomancer Anger for 2 treasures, and then boom, we got Anger in the graveyard. I'm not happy how we did it, but we got it done. And then this is where Altar of the Wretched is kind of dumb, because Altar can return itself. So we can put Altar in our hand here. Let's alter the Lord of Extinction to... Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll sack Lord of Extinction. We'll draw 50 cards and then mill the rest. So we're going to draw 50 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to go down to 10 cards in our library and mill the rest. That's what's going to happen. Or I think it's 11. Yeah, and then mill. Okay, cool. You have 50 mana floating still, so you can Greater Good, and then whenever you sack something for like a Goblin Engineer, you get to reanimate a creature. So all we have to do is slam Terror of the Peaks, and then from there you can easily just sack a creature, reanimate a creature. Yeah, you sack a creature, draw 2 cards, and that's going... Or sorry, you sack a creature, draw a card, and then you have to go to discard. So we can even discard Terror of the Peaks. We don't even have to cast it. And then we'll reanimate it with Out of the Tomb. Sorry, you didn't see that. Out of the Tomb. And then from there, if we have... I saw it in here. Great Hinge is in here. I know it is. It's in here, I promise. Yeah, so Great Hinge. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield, we get a draw trigger. In response to the draw trigger, we sacrifice the goblin, and then we get to put another creature into play. So what ends up happening is, especially, we can make this cleaner without having Greater Good. So I can probably just Eternal Witness here, bringing back our Altar... Yeah, Altar of Dementia, and I can do exactly what I explained in the video. You can go ahead and sacrifice a creature, and then we can trigger the first one with drawing a card from Greater Good. Then once the draw goes on the stack, Out of the Tomb triggers, Eternal enters, you'll get a draw off of the Greater Good. In response to the draw to get Greater Good, you sack Eternal Witness, bring Eternal Witness back, sack it, and then you can kill everybody with Terror of the Peaks. Pretty good there. All right, guys, not my cleanest player through, but then again, are they ever? But at the end of the day, all we had to do, tap Selvala for 50 mana, and from there, we can easily mill out our entire library. With Out of the Tomb, we go infinite, and we kind of just got there. Thank you guys if you made it this far. I am still curious if you guys are enjoying these playtests. So let me know in the comments down below if you got to the end of the playtest and you're still enjoying them. With that being said, I would like to thank my patrons, Newsome, Excessum, Chicken Salad. You guys are amazing. You keep the channel going. I appreciate all of you. With that being said, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.